The first call came through while I was still learning where everything was. It buzzed in my pocket as I stood in the stairwell, counting doors and trying to remember which level had the bathroom that didn't smell like chemicals. The building was quiet in that late-night way, not asleep, but holding its breath. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, each one flickering on a slightly different rhythm, like they couldn't agree on time. I glanced at my phone out of habit. No caller ID. I answered without thinking. Hello? Static. Then a soft click, like someone pressing a button too close to the mic. I frowned. Hello? For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing, slightly distorted, echoing back at me like I was standing at the end of a long hallway. Then a voice said my name, not shouted, not whispered, spoken normally, casually, like someone calling to you from another room. I pulled the phone away from my ear and checked the screen, suddenly uneasy. The call timer was still ticking up. The signal bars were full. "Who is this?" I said. There was a pause, a long one. Then the voice spoke again, closer this time. "You shouldn't answer those." The call ended. I stood there in the stairwell, phone pressed to my ear, heart thudding harder than it should have. The walls felt too close. The air smelled stale, recycled too many times. I told myself it was nothing. That's what you do when you're new somewhere. You normalize the strange things because admitting they're strange feels like admitting you've made a mistake. And I needed this job to not be a mistake. The building was an administrative block for a logistics company. Contracts, compliance, after-hours monitoring. Nothing glamorous. I worked nights because nights paid more and asked fewer questions. I sat in a glass-walled office on level 2 with a desk, a terminal, and a view down a long, carpeted corridor that never seemed to end where it should. During the day, the place was loud with phones and printers, and voices layered over one another. At night, it became something else. The walls creaked as the building cooled. Pipes knocked in the distance. Elevators moved when nobody called them. I'd been warned about some of it. "Old building," my supervisor had said during onboarding, smiling thinly. "She makes noises." He didn't mention the calls. The second one came just after midnight. I was seated at my desk, filling out a compliance log, when my phone buzzed again. No caller ID. This time, I hesitated. The screen glowed in the dim office, reflected faintly in the glass walls. For a second, I had the strange impression that the reflection was delayed, that my hand moved, and the reflection followed a heartbeat later. I answered. "Hello?" There was no static this time, no click, just silence. "Hello?" I said again, sharper. Something breathed on the line, not heavy, not labored, just present, like someone holding the phone too close to their mouth without realizing. I swallowed. "Who is this?" The breathing stopped. Then a voice said, "You're on level 2. My stomach tightened. "That's not," I started. "You're sitting at the desk by the glass," the voice continued calmly. "Your badge is clipped to your right pocket. The left light above you flickers when you don't move." I stood up so fast, my chair rolled back into the glass with a sharp crack. I turned, scanning the corridor, the stairwell doors, the reflections in the glass walls. There was no one there. My reflection stared back at me, pale, tense, eyes a little too wide. "Who are you?" I whispered into the phone. Another pause. Then, inside. The call ended. I stared at the dark screen until it went black. I didn't sleep on my break that night. I sat with my back against the office wall, watching the corridor, listening to the building breathe. When morning came, I told myself I'd imagined it. Stress, new environment, my brain filling in gaps. I didn't tell anyone. That was my second mistake. The third call came from a number I recognized, my own. I was walking down the corridor toward the kitchenette when my phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down automatically. Me, my name, my number, my contact photo. I stopped walking. The corridor lights hummed. The carpet swallowed sound. Somewhere above me, something shifted in the ceiling. My phone buzzed again. I answered. "Okay," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "This isn't funny." There was a faint crackle, like paper being crumpled near the microphone. Then I heard myself breathe, not synced with my own breathing, a half second out of phase. My mouth went dry. "Where are you?" my voice asked from the phone. I stopped myself. "I'm at work." A soft, amused sound came through the speaker. A sound I recognized as my own nervous laugh. "I know," the voice said. "I can see you." I spun, heart hammering, scanning the corridor behind me. Empty. "I'm in the building," my voice continued. "Same as you." The words landed wrong, not threatening, not comforting, administrative. I hung up. The lights flickered as soon as the call ended, plunging the corridor into half-darkness before stuttering back to life. My phone vibrated immediately. Another call. No caller ID. I didn't answer. The buzzing stopped after the third ring. Then the office phone rang. I froze. The desk phone almost never rang at night. External calls were routed through the system. Everything else went to voicemail. The ringing echoed down the corridor, sharp and insistent. I approached the desk slowly, every step measured, my skin prickling as if the air itself had turned watchful. I picked up the receiver. "Night operations," I said. Silence. Then the same voice, mine but flattened, stripped of warmth. "Good," it said. "You're learning." I slammed the receiver down and stepped back, chest heaving. That was when someone knocked on the glass. I nearly screamed. A man stood on the other side of the office wall, his face drawn and tired, badge clipped crookedly to his shirt. I recognized him vaguely from onboarding, facilities, older, always smelled faintly of disinfectant. He gestured for me to open the door. My hand shook as I unlocked it. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly as he stepped inside, glancing out at the corridor like he expected it to move. "No," I said, honestly. "Someone keeps calling me, saying things they shouldn't know." He sighed, deep, weary. "What did they say?" I told him. His jaw tightened with every detail. When I finished, he nodded once, like something had clicked into place. "Okay," he said. "Then listen to me carefully." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Stop answering calls from inside the building." I stared at him. "What?" "Your phone, the desk phone, any phone," he said. "If it rings while you're here, you don't answer it unless you're absolutely sure it's coming from outside." "How am I supposed to know that?" He met my eyes. "You usually can't." "That's not helpful." He huffed a dry laugh. "No, it isn't." He straightened, smoothing his shirt. "Look," he said. "The building's old. It was repurposed. Networks layered on networks. Lines go places they shouldn't. Sometimes signals loop. That doesn't explain how it knows my name." He hesitated. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "the building listens." My stomach dropped. "I'm serious," he added quickly. "This isn't a joke they play on new hires. It's not a prank. If a call comes from inside, it's not for you. It's checking." "Checking what?" "If you're still you, he said. The lights flickered again, longer, this time. He glanced up, then back at me. Just don't answer, he said. And don't talk to it. It gets better at sounding right when you do. He left before I could ask anything else. I locked the office door behind him and stood there in the quiet, my reflection fractured by the glass. My phone buzzed in my hand. No caller ID. I let it ring. The buzzing stopped. Then softly, the office phone began to ring. I unplugged it from the wall. The ringing didn't stop. It came from the handset, from the speaker, from the walls. My name echoed faintly through the corridor, spoken in my voice, over and over, growing closer with each repetition. I backed away until my shoulders hit the glass, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Stop answering, I whispered to myself. The ringing intensified, overlapping, distorting. Then, silence. I slid down the wall, shaken. That was the night I understood the rule. That was also the night I realized I'd already broken it too many times. The calls didn't stop after that. They changed. Sometimes my phone would light up without ringing, the screen showing missed calls I hadn't seen. Sometimes the voicemail icon would appear with messages that vanished when I tried to play them. Once, I found a transcript saved in my notes app. It was a conversation I didn't remember having. Me. Hello? Caller. You moved desks. Me. They told me to. Caller. That won't help. Me. Why? Caller. The building doesn't forget where you were. I deleted it. It came back the next night, longer, more detailed, describing things I hadn't done yet. By the end of the week, I stopped bringing my phone to work. The calls followed me anyway. The building had phones in places I hadn't noticed before. Emergency handsets in stairwells, intercoms above doors, a dusty wall phone in the records room that rang once, softly when I walked past it. I learned to walk with my hands over my ears. I learned not to look at reflections for too long, and I learned something worse. The calls weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to correct me. Because every time I ignored them, every time I refused to answer, something about the building shifted. Doors took longer to open. Hallways seemed longer than they had been. And sometimes, late at night, when the lights dimmed and the air grew thick and expectant, I would hear a phone ringing from inside my own chest, and I knew with awful certainty that sooner or later I was going to answer.